Throughout this character ed lesson, we hope that students find that they are not alone and that there are many resources available to them.
As this 2011 video, Friends for Life, shows, your friends are always there for you. They care about you, and they want to help. You may have noticed these posters up around the walls in the school, but if you take a close look, you'll find that they're actually a very helpful resource. They contain numbers to a crisis link phone hotline, suicide prevention hotline, and a crisis text hotline. They're not exclusive. They're open to anyone who feels or knows someone who feels overwhelmed or depressed.
Throughout high school, students can face a variety of problems, ranging from stress and anxiety to depression. Here are several Chantilly alum and Fairfax County alum to share what they struggled with during their high school career and how they overcame what they were facing.
When I went to school in Fairfax County, I did freshman football, I did JV football, I wrestled for 4 years, I did DECA.
I loved Chantilly when I went here. The teachers were great. Everyone was just really involved in the school, the community, and the parents. So it just felt like everyone cared about the school. I was involved in SGA. I was on exec. I did cheerleading, honor society, history club, best buddies.
Well, I went to Chantilly from 1997 until the spring of 2001, and at that point, the entire community was very different from the way it looks right now. I played football and baseball, and sports as an outlet kind of gives you a sense of community. As a student, it gives you something to stay focused on, because obviously a lot of teenagers don't just love school for the sake of school. And it was a way to stay involved with the school.
In terms of extracurricular activities, within Chantilly High School, I was an officer of the National Honor Society. I was a member of the Interact Club. I was a member of the cheerleading squad for 2 years. I would say one of my biggest struggles was just trying to balance everything. I tend to be a type A personality, so I always wanted to really do well with everything. And my biggest struggle was just trying to find that balance of, schoolwork and extracurricular activities, and then also just kind of maintaining a balanced and happy life.
I was a big procrastinator. I know a lot of people are in the school. I would go to wrestling practice and I would come home and I would eat dinner and I would not want to start my homework until it was at least dark outside, if not later. And so I really had to get myself, I had to prioritize. I had to say, what do I want in the long term? And what I wanted in the long term was to go to a Division I college and wrestle. And I wasn't going to be able to do that if I continued to procrastinate, if I continued to hand in work late, if I continued to put off the stuff that actually mattered in the long run for the stuff that I wanted in the moment. So
So when I was in high school, I actually didn't suffer from depression at any point during high school, but my mom did suffer from it at times, and it was never too extreme, but I just noticed that she would go through certain lulls at certain times, and that's actually made me more self-aware. I realized that that's kind of in my gene pool, and I need to be careful about that. And as far as advice, as far as things that I do to make sure that I keep myself healthy, I think having a support group is really important. Depression seems to swell when you are trying to take it on by yourself. So just having one or two people in every environment that you interact with, that you can talk to, whether it be at home or whether it be at school or whether it be where you work, just having some people that you can talk to, I think is really important. And also having outlets. I am a writer, so I try to go home and write for at least 30 minutes every day. And that tends to help me take out some of that energy. And I find that if I have those outlets, then it won't swell quite as much.
I think for me, the hardest part was probably the same thing that's very difficult for most students, and that's just wanting to fit in and not stand out and look silly. And I tell that to my students all the time, especially when we have character ed lessons, that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what it appears like to you, somebody next to you is hurting about something because you're a teenager. There's always insecurities, and I think for me as a student, that was definitely the case. I wanted to fit in, I wanted to have friends, I was insecure about the same things we were still insecure about as a teenager, because that's what it is to be a teenager, unfortunately. And I think being involved in sports and having a close circle of friends is the best thing, was the best thing for me, and activities and finding a group of people that you can trust and fit in with, I think is key.
I talked to different people in my life who I felt like were structured. I talked to my coaches, I talked to my parents, I talked to my youth group leaders and people of that nature. And I figured out how they structured themselves, and then I structured myself that way. I more or less gave myself a second school day where I did all of my homework, and I said, okay, in first period I'm going to do math, in third period I'm going to do history, and lastly I would do English because it was the thing that I liked the best. So it was sort of like a reward for finishing my work.
Now, here is some advice from these teachers based on their own experiences.
One piece of advice that I have for anyone who's struggling is just to kind of take everything piece by piece. When I would sometimes be a little upset about something, my dad would always say, they can outperform you, but they can't outprepare you. So preparing yourself can really help and make you hopefully a successful person. And just know that everyone has stressful days, and that sometimes just smiling and getting through it, or asking a friend or family member to talk to you, can really be helpful.
My advice from my own experiences would be to just, keep in mind that it's a short period in your life, and it isn't going to be the best period of your life. It's not supposed to be. It's a tough time. You're transitioning from childhood to adulthood, and you've got lots of teachers and counselors that care about you and want to help you. And if you ever feel like you need to see anyone or speak to someone, there are many different people that you can reach out to, and I would encourage you to do so.
For anybody who's struggling with anything, you just have to realize that there's help out there, and that you're not alone, and that no matter how alone you feel, like you're never alone out there. That someone else is, maybe they don't have the same problem, but they've had a similar problem where they can relate, and that people want to help. That throughout time, people have been drawn to other people, and they want to help other people succeed. And there's a variety of people, both students, teachers, faculty, custodians, coaches, everyone who wants to see you as a teenager succeed. So don't ever feel like you're alone. And if you ever need help, look to the people that are in the place where you want to be and ask them how they got there, because they'll be more than happy to tell you.
I would just say utilize your teachers and your counselor the best you can. We're really open to helping you with time management. We know you guys feel overwhelmed a lot with sports and everything. So especially now that I'm coaching and a teacher, I see that we're a lot open to helping you. And if you need more time on things, you can always go to your teacher or go to your coach and ask for extra help. And obviously the counselors are here too.
I think in the scheme of things, looking back on it, I lost a lot of sleep like all teenagers do over now what I would call silly things, but at the time they weren't silly. And I think it's important to know that everyone in this building, every adult can relate to that and would be ready and willing and happy to help you all with any issues that you may have.
In conclusion, we hope that students have found that they are not alone and that there are many available resources for them to use if they are struggling.